It was already past 4 a.m. when Officer Lee Chong showed up at the crime scene, and there was still some residual hangover from last night. But as soon as he got into work mode, it immediately disappeared. 6 victims were found at the crime scene. According to preliminary identification by the forensic doctor, all died of excessive bleeding due to carotid artery rupture. The tragedy of annihilation of a family. TSK, how big a hatred is this? Police officer Xiao Zhang muttered while surveying the scene. Li Chong glanced at Xiao Zhang, shook his head, and said, "How many times have I told you? Don't make preconceptions. Everything must be based on evidence so that you can discover the truth beneath the surface." Xiao Zhang stuck out his tongue and said, "I understand, master." Everything in the house was neat and tidy, and Li Chong found no trace of fighting in the house. But the scene was extremely bloody, almost like a slaughterhouse. At this time, a painting on the wall attracted Officer Lee's attention. There was a lot of blood splattered at the scene, causing the walls, furniture, and even the chandelier to be covered in blood. But this painting was extremely clean. Li Chong stared at the oil painting for a while and asked Xiao Zhang, "Do you think there is anything suspicious about this painting?" "Something suspicious? Isn't it just an oil painting? It seems to be old, so it might be a famous painting. I can't tell anything else yet," Xiao Zhang said, looking at Li Chong. "Don't you think it's too clean?" Li Chong asked Xiao Zhang. "Ah, yes, there doesn't seem to be a drop of blood on it. Maybe it's because it's high," Xiao Zhang said. "Maybe," Li Chong replied thoughtfully. But the reason that attracted Li Chong the most was not this. He found that the painting looked familiar. "I seem to have seen it somewhere, but I can't remember it at the moment." Officer Lee is a rough man. He has no knowledge of art, let alone oil painting. His greatest strength is his excellent memory. So, after graduating from the police academy, he was assigned to the city's criminal police brigade. "I have been doing this for 20 years. From the young boy back then, I have grown into a calm, and capable people's policeman." Li Chong observed the painting carefully. It was an old oil painting depicting a middle-class family portrait in the 1920s and 1930s. 8 people, old and young. There is a line of small words in the lower right corner of the painting, April 2934, Wenshuan Gallery. After returning to the team in the afternoon, Officer Li looked through some old Shenyang cases. Only then did he discover that in a major murder case he handled when he first joined the team 20 years ago, one of the exhibits at the scene was this oil painting. 4 victims were killed in the case. The case has not yet been solved. The appearance of this painting seemed to remind him that he still had unfinished cases waiting for him to finish. After a case analysis meeting, the conclusion was that the 6 victims in this case were a family, namely father, mother, daughter, grandfather, grandmother, or sister-in-law. The head of the household is a businessman, and his family is well off. But he is a kind person and has never made any enemies in business or friends. But who will be killing this family? The technique was so cruel. The autopsy report said all 6 victims had their carotid arteries and throats cut with sharp tools and died of excessive blood loss. There were no signs of struggle on his body. What a headache! There are no fingerprints and the doors and windows are locked. Did the murderer disappear out of thin air? Xiao Zhang said while repeatedly looking at the photos taken at the scene. Li Chong felt so familiar when he heard Xiao Zhang's words because he said the same words 10 years ago. His thoughts were brought back 10 years ago by Xiao Zhang's words. It was a stormy night. The criminal police brigade received a report from the masses. A murder of 4 people occurred in a villa located at number 75 Dongfeng Road. The victims were the family of Duan, a well-known local entrepreneur. Among them are Duan, his wife Wang, their son and daughter-in-law, a total of 4 people. The person in charge of dispatching the police was none other than Officer Lee, who had just joined the police force. As soon as he entered the scene, Officer Lee was stunned by the bloody scene. The blood on the floor had already solidified into a porridge-like form, and the 4 deceased fell on the floor of the bedroom and living room respectively. All of them died of excessive blood loss after their carotid arteries were severed with sharp instruments, and they showed no trace of resistance. The door is locked and the interior door is locked. Is it homicide or suicide? This question has been swirling in Li Chang's mind. This case was Li Chang's first independent investigation. He felt a lot of pressure when he encountered such a heavyweight. He used all the skills he learned in school and taught by his master, but there were still no clues or breakthroughs in the case. A perfect secret room murder case. In the end, the case can only be kept on the shelf. But this case has become an unsolvable knot in Li Chang's heart. He remembered every detail of the investigation of the case, including all the furnishings at the crime scene. So he was very surprised by the appearance of that picture. At the scene of the four-body murder case that year, this painting was spattered with a large amount of blood. After the DNA was extracted by the forensic department, it was placed in the evidence room as an important exhibit. But later Li Chang clearly remembered the fire in the evidence room in February 2007, which caused all the evidence from 2003 to 2006 to be burned. This painting should be among them, right? But why is it here now? No traces other than the four victims were found at the crime scene, and the forensics department didn't find anything useful in the paintings. At that time, a large amount of blood was sprayed on the surface of the oil painting, but now there is no trace at all. According to the normal way of handling the case, the appearance of this painting is not necessarily the main clue in the murder case, but because it is an important evidence in the murder case of four corpses 20 years ago. This made Officer Li pay extra attention. It must have been handled by someone, but how did the painting get out of the evidence room? Officer Li looked at the oil painting in front of him and thought hard. He was really puzzled. The fire in the evidence room that year was just a pure accident, without any human factors. The case has once again reached a bottleneck, and Li Chang is really afraid that it will become an unsolved case forever like the case 20 years ago. At 2 o'clock in the morning, ring, a rush of phone calls came to mind. Li Chang answered the phone in a daze. Hey, it's me. What happened? What? I'll rush over right away. He hurriedly put on his police uniform, hurried out the door, walked to the car in 3 steps, then quickly started the car and drove straight to the Public Security Bureau. Officer Li walked into the evidence room of the Municipal Public Security Bureau and saw Wan Lei, the police officer on duty, lying on his chair. His carotid artery and trachea had been cut. A large amount of blood spurted out, splashing scarlet red all over the wall, making it look particularly ferocious. At this time, Xiao Zhang and his staff had already begun to survey the scene. What's going on? Officer Li asked Xiao Zhang calmly. There were no clues left at the scene, and Wang Lei showed no signs of resistance. He and I were in the same class. When he was in school, he won first place in the school in Sanda. Ordinary people would definitely not be able to subdue him in a short time. Xiao Zhang said angrily. Is there anything missing? Li Chang asked Xiao Zhang while observing the scene carefully. Yes, it's the painting I got back from today's case. Xiao Zhang quickly answered Li Chang. Upon hearing this, Li Chang said anxiously, What? The painting is gone. Have you checked the surveillance? Xiao Zhang also shook his head helplessly and said, Look, there was something wrong with the surveillance at that time. The picture was seriously interfered, and I couldn't see anything clearly. Hearing a bang, Li Chang punched the table in anger. A policeman died at the Public Security Bureau, and important evidence was lost. Tell it and make people laugh out loud. But anger is useless at this moment. If you lose it, you will lose it. Li Chang immediately organized people to investigate various art markets in the city. A few days later, the painting appeared at an auction and was sold at a high price of 500,000. When the police arrived, the painting had already been paid and taken away. The staff of the furniture auction said that this painting was entrusted to them by an anonymous seller for auction, and they did not know the true identity of this person. But they can provide the identity information of the person who bought the painting. He is an invisible rich man in the city. His name is Qin Guozhi. When Li Chang and his party arrived at Qin Guozhi's home, his door was locked. After ringing the doorbell, a middle-aged woman came out, claiming to be the nanny at home. He said to Li Chang and others, It's not convenient for Mr. Qin to see guests today. Please come another day. Although Li Chang was rejected, He still gave the nanny his phone number and said to her, "If anything happens, call him." After Li Chong returned to the criminal police team, he asked Xiao Zhang to print out the photo of the oil painting at a ratio of 2:2. He took this painting and ran around various painters' associations in the city. I wanted to find out the origin of this painting and finally found an old man who knew this painting in a Sunset Red Painters Association. The old man's name is Zhao Dojin, and he is 96 years old this year. Li Chong showed the photo of the oil painting to the old man, and he recognized it at a glance as being painted by his teacher Lu Wenxuan. This was painted by my teacher when I was only 24 years old. Everyone called me Xiao Jinzi. I studied painting under my teacher Lu Wenxuan. He ran a Wenxuan gallery by himself, and his business was sporadic. At that time, it was very popular to paint full-length oil paintings. The teacher also relied on this painting to manage the gallery. Although more than 80 years have passed, I still have a deep impression on this family because their whole family did not die a happy death in the end. I still remember that it was a family named Su who ran a barbershop for a living. People called him Boss Su. The people in this painting include his wife, 2 sons, a little daughter, his parents, and his sister, a total of 8 people. It had been a long time since the painting was finished, but Boss Su didn't come to pick it up, so the teacher asked me to go to his barbershop and tell him that I had finished painting the oil painting for Boss Su. I went there and found that the barbershop at his house was not open. When I asked the neighbor next to me, he said, "I haven't seen him doing business in a few days." I asked my neighbor for the address of his home, but when I came to the door, I found that there were many people inside and outside Boss Su's home. I wanted to step forward to see what was going on, but was stopped by a policeman. They said there was a murder inside, and they couldn't go in. Later, I found out that Boss Su had killed his entire family for some unknown reason, and then committed suicide himself. Later, the teacher felt that this painting was very unlucky, so he asked me to wrap up the painting and put it in the basement. I have never taken it out. It wasn't until the teacher passed away in 1983 that the painting was auctioned off by the teacher's family and bought by a rich man. That's all I remember. I don't know what happened after that. The old man finished telling what happened that year. This painting was related to a murder case. At this time, Li Chong felt an inexplicable feeling of fear in his heart. Although Li Chong had some understanding of what happened back then through the old man's narration, the specific situation was not very detailed. So he decided to drive to the city's museum to see if there were any records in the newspapers of the year. After arriving at the museum, the staff found him local newspapers from 2934. Li Chong found an article in an evening newspaper in May of that year. A horrific tragedy occurred in a house at number 32 Shiguan Street on the 22nd of this month. 7 members of Su Kuntai's family, owner of Su's barbershop, were killed. His 22-year-old daughter disappeared. The case is still being solved. A few simple sentences explain the location, events, and people. Wait, Li Chong suddenly discovered that the 8 people were not dead. Su Kuntai's youngest daughter was missing and did not die at the scene. But obviously they have never been found. Otherwise, Mr. Zhao would not have thought that 8 people were killed. On the way back, Li Chong kept thinking about the relationship between the 2 cases and this painting. As he was walking, he heard the voice behind him. "Young man, have you got any unsolved problems that have been bothering you recently?" Li Chong looked back and saw a blind man sitting in the corner not far behind him. There was a piece of cloth on the ground with the words, "No astronomy" from above, "Geography" from below, and "Harmony" from the middle. Damn it! Li Chong cursed in his heart. It turned out to be a fortune teller, but he ignored him and wanted to walk away. But the blind man stopped Li Chong again. "Young man, you must be a member of the government with your royal aura. Did you know that you will be in a big disaster in a few days?" The old man said to Li Chong mysteriously. Li Chong was not wearing a police uniform today. He was wearing casual clothes, and there were no other colleagues around him. This old blind man actually knew that he was a policeman. It seemed that he was quite capable. So he walked over with a smile and sat on the horse in front of the blind man's stall. Asked the blind man, "Then tell me what calamity will happen to me?" The blind man didn't talk nonsense and just said, You have to let me touch your hands and face first. Li Chang said readily, Okay, you can touch it. The blind man fumbled on Li Chang's face for a while, then frowned and said, Young man, you have been so murderous lately. Your imperial aura should be immune to evil, but recently you have encountered a very dangerous object. This object has a very heavy murderous aura, and countless lives have been lost to it. You must be careful. If you don't stay away from it quickly, you will die. Li Chang laughed when he heard it. Based on his past experience, he knew that the average liar would definitely say at this time, I have a way to help you solve it. So he asked the blind man, Then, do you have a way to solve it? Unexpectedly, the blind man said, There is no solution, so we can only stay away from this thing. Otherwise, your life will end. Li Chang was stunned for a moment and asked in disbelief, There is really no way to solve it. I can give you money. The blind man laughed loudly when he heard this and said, How dare I ask for your money? I'm afraid I won't be able to spend it. After saying that, he turned around to close the stall and leave. Before leaving, he turned back to Li Chang and said, Young man, I think you have a lot of talent. It's a pity that you have lost your talent like this. I set up a stall here every day. If you encounter any mystery, just come and find me. After saying that, he turned around and groped away with his blind stick. Li Chang was left standing alone on the street. When Li Chang returned to the team, he saw Xiao Zheng coming back from the outside excitedly and said to him excitedly, Master, there is something new. Li Chang was very excited when he heard this and asked quickly, Tell me, what is the new thing? I found out that there was a murder case in a neighboring city in 2983, and this painting also appeared. As he said, he took out a newspaper with photos of the crime scene, and the oil painting hung in the upper corner of the photo. Xiao Zhang took a sip of water and continued. The victim's name was Guo Jiaji, who was a well-known wealthy businessman in a neighboring city. A total of 5 people in his family were killed, but this time there is a survivor. It is his little daughter, Guo Wenting. When Li Chang heard that there were survivors, he happily asked, There are survivors. Great. Where are they now? She's at Qingshan Hospital in the neighboring city, Xiao Zhang said hesitantly. Damn. Psychiatric hospital. Li Chang was dumbfounded when he heard it, but considering that a madman is better than a dead person, he would always get something from her mouth. So the next afternoon, the two came to Qingshan Hospital in the neighboring city. After explaining their intention to the hospital staff, they called Dr. Bai, Guo Wenting's attending physician. Dr. Gu Bai introduced that Guo Wenting suffered from severe schizophrenia and personality disorder, and she had a long medical history. She had been ill since she was a teenager. The condition often recurs, good and bad, and I have been in the hospital for medical treatment since the past few years. Then does she have family? Li Chang asked Dr. Bai. Dr. Bai thought for a while and said, She has a cousin who comes to see her occasionally. Li Chang then asked, Can I see her? Dr. Bai thought about it and said, Her current condition is quite stable. You can see her. Okay, thank you, Dr. Bai, Li Chang said gratefully. The two came to Guo Wenting's ward. Through the small window of the ward, Li Chang saw a quiet and peaceful middle-aged woman sitting on the bed, holding a copy of Dream of Red Mansions in her hand and looking at it quietly. Dong, dong, dong. Li Chang knocked on the door of the ward softly. Please come in. A gentle voice sounded. Hello, I am Li Chang, the captain of the Criminal Police Brigade of City A. We are here to find out some information from you about the murder that occurred in your home back then. Li Chang couldn't bear to ask what happened back then. A trace of fear flashed in Guo Wenting's eyes. She looked up at Li Chang and said softly, Why do you want to know what happened back then? Li Chang said, Because the same oil painting appeared in several cases I have on hand, and this oil painting first appeared in your home. 2 police officers, please take a seat. What do you think is the credibility of a patient of mine telling what happened back then? Guo Wenting said with a smile. As long as Ms. Guo is willing to say it, we are willing to believe it, Li Chang said firmly. Okay, since Officer Lee really wants to know something about that year, I can tell you my story, but at this point, she suddenly smiled strangely and said to Li Chong, "You must never tell anyone else." Li Chong felt a chill in his heart. It seemed that this woman was indeed a little abnormal. But Guo Wenting immediately regained her expression when they first came in and softly talked about what happened back then. Back then, my father was in the steel business, and my family was very well off. I had two older brothers. Because I was the youngest in the family, I was the one who loved me the most. My mother didn't take good care of herself when she gave birth to me, and she was always very weak, so my father took my grandmother home to take care of the three of us brothers and sisters. Our family lived a very happy life, and my father and mother were very loving until that damn oil painting appeared. It changed my family, my life, and even my life. I still remember that it was a summer evening because my father liked to collect calligraphy and paintings of famous people during that time, so he was excited to get back an oil painting that night. He told us, this is the most precious work in his collection. It was painted by a famous painter during his lifetime, and it has never been seen in the world. It was only after the death of the painter that people were lucky enough to see this oil painting. But I don't like this painting. When I first saw it, I felt an inexplicable fear. The tone of the picture is very gray, and I don't know much about oil painting. I don't know if this style of painting was popular back then. All I know is that this painting makes people feel extremely depressed. Everyone in the painting has a gloomy face, as if they are worried. In the living room where my father hung the painting, there was a sharp contrast between our happy family and the family in the painting. Every day, I saw the resentful and jealous expressions of the people in the painting. I said to my father, "Don't hang the painting. I don't like this painting. It's too dark." But my father said that I didn't understand. It was hung in the living room so that guests could only see this masterpiece when they came. I was helpless and couldn't change my father's mind, but I didn't know that the development of things made my originally beautiful life become more and more terrible. I slowly discovered that everyone in the family was quietly changing. My mother became paranoid and always wondered if my father had another woman outside. My father became increasingly cold-hearted towards me. One time, I actually heard him tell his mother that daughters are like thrown water and only sons are qualified to inherit the family business. My brothers no longer love me as much as before, and my kind grandmother has become very gloomy, always nagging to herself. And I saw a little girl that no one else could see appearing in my home. She was always holding a dirty rag doll, barefoot, with messy and dirty hair, one braid open and the other tied, wearing a yellow skirt that was so dirty that the color was almost invisible. She lowered her head and looked up at me. The most terrifying thing was her resentful eyes, full of hatred and jealousy. I recognized her immediately as the little girl in the lower right corner of the painting. In the painting, she is wearing a beautiful egg yellow dress, holding a cute rag doll in her hand, and wearing two neat little braids. The contrast between her in the painting and her in my eyes is so great. I told my family about her existence, but no one believed me because all of them couldn't see her. So I became neurotic in the eyes of my family and talked to myself. Finally, my father couldn't bear it anymore and sent me to a mental hospital. I was 24 years old that year. An accident occurred at home within 2 months of entering the hospital. The Public Security Bureau's investigation concluded that my father was depressed because of his failure in the shopping mall. Coupled with my mother's endless accusations and suspicions, my father finally collapsed and killed the entire family. I survived being sent to a mental hospital. Because something happened at home, I was taken home by my cousin. But when I got home, I found that she was still there, but this time there was a smile on her face, a stiff smile. It seemed like she was mocking me and her. The whole family died, and I inherited my father's estate. I sold the house and the paintings, and my cousin and I left the city. I want to start a new life and forget everything about the past. But after that, she still lingered on me. Every time I wanted to be happy, she would appear. Then something bad happens, and my life gets worse and worse from there. Then suddenly one day, I found that after I took the medicine prescribed by the doctor, she would disappear for a period of time. So I have been going to psychiatrists repeatedly over the years, and I have been living here until now because only here can she disappear and I can find real peace. After listening to Guo Wenting's story, which was both true and false, Li Chang decided to meet her cousin. So he and Dr. Bai asked for the address of Guo Wenting's cousin. Her cousin's home is not far from Qingshan Hospital, only a 40-minute drive. After meeting Guo Wenting's cousin, Li Chang explained the purpose of his visit, but her cousin didn't want to mention what happened back then. After Li Chang's further persuasion, he told another version of the story. It turns out that Guo Jiaji killed his entire family because he accidentally learned during a physical examination that he was actually congenitally infertile. But the 3 children in the family are living there. Isn't this ironic? He went home and questioned his wife, but she denied it. He killed his wife in one effort, and when he was so red-eyed, he thought that none of his sons were his. So he went on to kill everyone in the family. In the end, she committed suicide on the sofa in the living room. She didn't know the reason why Guo Wenting suffered from mental illness before. Everyone in her cousin's family was dead, so she had no choice but to bring Guo Wenting back. But not long after arriving home, she fell ill again and was nagging all day long. I had no choice but to take her to various places to seek medical treatment. In the end, with Guo Wenting's consent, all the inheritance left by her cousin and his wife was sold to her for medical treatment, and she was often hospitalized with good and bad times. After leaving Guo Wenting's cousin's house, Xiao Zhang said to Li Chang, "Master, this painting is too evil. Why don't we report it to our superiors and burn this painting?" "File a report. You, or I should fight. What should I say? Saying oil paintings kill people? That's nonsense," Li Chang said angrily. Xiao Zhang said with an aggrieved look, "What should we do? Is this case still under investigation? Let's go round and round, and we still have suspicions. There is no murder, no motive, and not even a murder weapon." After returning home at night, Li Chang couldn't sleep. He knew that Xiao Zhang was right, but he was really unwilling to give up like this. He was thinking about it in bed and fell asleep at some point. After a long time, Li Chang suddenly felt something was wrong. Years of criminal police experience told him that there was someone by his side. Li Chang opened his eyes and saw a woman standing in front of his bed. "Who?" he shouted, but the figure just stood there. Through the moonlight, Li Chang could clearly see the figure. "Guo Wenting, why are you here?" Li Chang said calmly. But there was still no reaction from the human figure, but his mouth kept moving, as if he was saying something repeatedly. Li Chang watched her mouth open and close, as if she was saying, "Be careful." Ring, ring, ring. The phone suddenly rang, and Li Chang sat up. It turned out to be a dream. He answered the phone tiredly, only to hear Xiao Zhang saying anxiously on the phone, "Master, Guo Wenting is dead." "What? When did it happen?" The news was so sudden that Li Chang couldn't react. Just now, the doctor on duty at Qingshan Hospital discovered that she had cut her carotid artery in the ward without knowing what happened, and she died of excessive blood loss. When the Public Security Bureau of the neighboring city learned that we had been there today, they called the team directly to understand the situation. Xiao Zhang finished telling what happened in one breath. Is it a coincidence? Li Chang just dreamed that Guo Wenting told him to be careful, and she died. He felt like he was falling into a vicious curse and couldn't extricate himself. The next day, he came alone to the road where he met the blind man that day and saw at a glance that the blind man was still setting up a stall there. He walked up and said nothing, just sat down quietly. Unexpectedly, the blind man opened his mouth and said, "Young man, you are here. Are you really blind or are you pretending to be blind?" Li Chang asked jokingly. "It doesn't matter to you whether you are blind or not. What is important is that your time is coming," the blind man said solemnly. "Personally, I'm not afraid of anything. I just want to put an end to this matter. I don't want anyone to lose their lives anymore. But what can I do, Master?" This time, Li Chang showed rare respect for the blind man. The blind man also said with a serious face, "It's not difficult to say it's hard. It's also hard to say it's not. Everything has a cause and an effect. You have to find the right cause first, and then unravel the effect. There must be a resentful ghost behind this evil thing, which is also the root of all causes. With his current resentment, there must be bones in the world. Find his bones and burn him with pure yang fire.